What's up, guys? Thanks for clicking on my video. I hope everybody's doing good out there. Today we got a technical video for you. We're going to be totally disassembling an SK19 from LCS arms, and then we're going to put it all back together. So this is going to show you every part of the SK19 and how to work on it. You're going to learn how to remove your barrel for cleaning, unjam a pellet, adjust your rate of fire, and all kinds of other cool stuff. So we're going to burn through it fast. Nothing in here you don't need to know. And if you've ever been thinking of getting an SK19 or you already own one, definitely this is a video you're going to want to watch. So it's a rare glimpse to see how one of your guns actually works. Here we go. So the tools you're going to need are a small pair of needle nose pliers. You're going to need some Allen keys that are 4mm, 3mm, 2.5mm, and 2mm. Alright, you can actually remove the barrel without taking the air out of the gun, but I'm just going to take the air out of the gun first anyway. So, unscrew the bottle, but just a little bit. Oh, I forgot, there's no air in this gun, but you unscrew the bottle, but not all the way, just enough to have the air come out. Make sure that that gets to 0. Then you go down here, and this screw right here is to release the air out of your regulator section. So we're going to go ahead and hit that with a 2.5mm, and it'll go psh. So don't work on this gun at all until both your gauges, that one and this one right here, are at 0. Sorry, I can't hold the thing up to the camera because it doesn't focus, and I'm not going to stop to zoom in on all this crap, so hopefully you guys can see it okay. Alright, the other thing you want to do is have your gun, it's going to want to be in semi-auto when we get to the part back here and we're working on it. Just put in semi-auto. Make sure it's not loaded if possible. My gun has a pellet jammed in it, so fortunately there's no air in it. You're going to turn the gun over, and to get the barrel off, the shroud right here, we're just going to hand tighten, so we're just going to go like that. Okay, I actually wanted to, this was tight, so I turned the LDC, and just going to unscrew right here. I think it's actually screwing to the end of the barrel right here, so this is where your screw is attaching, and it's just resting against the block back here. See, there's no threads right there at all. So we'll see here. So you gently, always want to be gentle and careful when you're doing all this stuff. Yeah, so that screws on right there. Got some beautiful threads right there. Now these two screws right here, 4mm, and that's going to get your barrel out. One thing to remember, and I learned this on the Leshy too, when you're holding a barrel in, you don't crank these screws down super hard, okay? You just snug them up a little bit. They're just to hold the barrel so it doesn't fall out, that's all. It's not to clamp the barrel as hard as you can do and try to bend it. So this is the same as your FX No Limits scope rings. Yeah, see, this one right here is so tight that I can't get it off. It's actually bending my tool right here. So I might have to actually hit this with a little bit of penetrating oil or something and then come back to this. Alright, I did just take 2 hands and I broke that free, so woo! Alright, I'm not going to take these out, of course. They're just nice and free though now. And then my barrel is supposed to, it's just going to, oh yeah, this is, I could do this with 2 fingers. It's just going to gently start turning. And I think it's actually threaded, so as I turn it, it should come out. So when we're putting this back in, we're going to screw it in, and then if we screw it too far, it's going to hang the magazine up. Ooh, yeah, so that's ready to, oh, this is, you can feel the precision. Just pulling this out here. Look, that's where it was threaded in right there. Now, in the AOA video I watched on how to remove this, boy, this is a nice barrel. This thing's long as heck, you guys. Boy, that thing's probably 24 inches long right there. On the AOA video, they said something about you could take your barrel out to put a slug barrel in. But all you guys at home, you can take your barrel out definitely to clean it the first time. So that's a bonus right there. So I'm going to put these away somewhere where they're not going to roll off my table. By the way, here's what that shroud looks like inside. So this is screwing onto the end of your barrel, and this is just a tube. But you do have this spacer thing on the end. I don't know if you guys can see that. Can't really see in my camera. But this is I got this in my SK19 review that I did on this 30 caliber. So if you want to see more about that, just check that out. It's got a lot of details on this gun. Alright, boys and girls. This right here is called the trigger connecting bar. We're going to take this off, and I'm going to show you how to take the trigger off and put it back on real fast. That right there was a 2mm. This right here is a 2mm. Look, that just comes right off. You can see the position of your switch because of the oval in there. Alright, let me get rid of this butt pad here. Looks like these butt pad screws are 3mm. There's your butt pad right there. So we got a 4mm grip screw right here. So that's a 4mm screw. Okay, and these are all 3mm. Alright, you guys, so my 5th screw is right in this hole right here. There's a hole right here. I wish I could zoom in, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So all these screws, you guys, and I'm just learning this myself. You never tighten screws on an air gun or RC car. You just snug them up. So you go till they touch, give it a little bit of snug, but you never crank down. Okay, this is not a Ford car. It's not your Mustang, okay? This is all aluminum. It's usually a steel screw on aluminum block. So I learned that when I stripped out the trigger guard on my M3. Luckily, the machinists are smart, so they make the hole deeper than the screw. So what I did is I took a screw that was like 2mm longer, and it went right back in. Now my last one is right here. That one might be 4mm right there. I'm going to take this guard off because I can't get... oh, yeah. Alright. You can't get a straight shot at that bolt right there unless this thing's all the way back. Alright, so the most important thing is basically there's a linkage in here, and you don't want to rotate what's under here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So when you lift this up, it's going to come right up. Oh, gotta take all the screws out. So what you're going to do is put your finger right under here. Let's see here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, this is easy. So this piece right here is what you don't want to rotate. So what you're going to do is this just slides in and out like this. I'm holding all this stuff together, but yeah, there we go. See, this just slides out. And so you're just going to want to tuck it up in here with your finger. Okay, and then you could turn it over and then lay this down to the side, okay, and leave it like that. And when you're ready to put it in, you just put this with your finger. You don't want to rotate. All right, now it's getting wonky. Oh, hey, how's it going, buddy? My whole gun's falling apart. I wonder why. So when we're putting it back in, we're just going to want to put our finger on it, turn it over, and then we'll just slide it right back in. And then it just slides right back in like that. Everything should slide together easily. There we go, like that, and then this will just go right back on the way we had it. It can't right now because the block is sideways. So anyway. Alright, let me take this off. So if you see right here, it goes in this little channel right here. So that's why you hold it to one side and it'll just go in this little slot right here. And you'll be good. So I'm just going to put this down. We'll be all good until I put that back on. Just so you guys know what's going on in here. It goes down here. And then right here is the trigger. So that's pretty simple. The best way to remove this little piece right here, which is the cheek piece, this whole piece right here is screwed in right here. We're going to grab hold of this and then spin this back piece. When I grab my front bottle or grab this right here, this spins freely. So I'm going to grab my front bottle like this, just kind of spin this. You just have to turn it 45 degrees and the cheek piece will come right out. The reason you don't want to unscrew this and screw it back in too much is because that can tear up or damage the O-ring. Alright, so now we're looking like that. We're going to turn the rifle sideways. And now we're just going to remove this one little screw right here. It's a 2mm. Once that screw is out, we'll be able to remove our rear block. So you just hold the gun in the position it was in when you unscrewed the screw, and then turn it exactly 90 degrees, and it will pull right apart. Now we got our rear block right here. Whoopity-doo. And there's really not much going on with the rest of this, I don't think. There you go. And I don't think we really do much with this. So this is still loose right here. I'm just going to leave it. We're going to work on this part. And inside here we got our whole trigger mechanism, which looks complicated, but it's actually pretty easy. We're going to pull out what's called the side piston. We're going to take this off and pull out what's called the center piston. And through all that, we're going to take this front block off, which is the magazine dealy bobber. And yeah, we'll be all set. And like I say, it seems complicated, but it's actually quite simple in there. Here we go. Alrighty, Roo. So, let's see if I can get a shot at why my pellet. I jammed this gun because I didn't load the pellets right. You got to kind of push them in pretty good. So, for this whole section right here, you just remove these two screws right here. It's going to be 2.5mm. It's a pretty long screw right there. Alright guys, I think you want to have this standing up. This is just going to pull right out. Oh, those are just my pellets falling out. Yeah, there's nothing you need to hold on to or nothing. There it is, and I had some messed up pellets in there, so let me just take care of this. Yeah, like just leave this together. You don't want to be pulling that apart, I don't think. Alright, so you can actually go like this. And I have to get my pellet around to where I can poke it out of there. I got a jammed, messed up pellet there. Alright, I'm all ready to put this back on. Now, it says to take something like a sturdy card. And that is so you can, when you're putting this back on, you're going to want to push this little thing in a little teeny bit. See that little lever right there? It's going to push in like that. So you just slide a credit card in there when you're sliding this baby back on like this. And yeah, so there's a little teeny gap right there. I'm going to go get my credit card. Boom, did you see that? Clicked it right down. Perfect. All right, so then that's back in there. You can screw that back on. Right now, though, I'm going to take this off. Ooh, be careful. And put this aside, and we'll get back to that later. All right, for the top piston, we're going to make sure that the gun is in semi, which is right there in the middle. We're going to be pulling out this piece right here. So you want to make sure that your gun is in semi-auto. We're going to just remove these 4 screws in the back right there. Looks like these guys are 3mm. Like we're getting a little bit spring-loaded here. Alright. There's a little spring right here. There we go. A little spring and looks like a rubber Yeah, look at that. So we got a little rubber stopper thing or do there. All right, make sure that you pull the trigger while you're doing this. All right, that popped right out. All right, to reassemble this bad boy, this little piece right here, you're going to put the red side down, just drop it in there. And you can give it a little bit of a tap. It just goes right in like that. Don't forget to pull your trigger when you're doing this. So you grease that up a little bit right there. Drop that in there and then pull your trigger, which is pushing it forward. Once you do that, you can pops right down into place. That's it. Then you just drop your screw in there like that and put your plate back on. So you can kind of go like this and wiggle the plate off. And then here's what you got underneath there. Now this looks really complicated, but it's actually not. And we're going to pull these parts right out of here and put them right back in. So medium spring, small spring, large spring. 2 pins that are the same size and a few pieces right here. Then we're going to undo this screw and 2 little pieces are going to come out of the bottom right there. And that's your whole trigger assembly. First we're going to take out these 2 pins right here. I already took this pin out once, but I wasn't recording, so I had to do it again. Then this pin right here. And then we'll get rid of our springs. Your medium spring. And that's it right there. That's what you're left with right there. And now we're going to pull this screw right here out. Get those last trigger pieces out. There is a screw that came out of there, and we got this piece that fell out of the bottom. And you see a little piece sticking up in the top there. There it is. And there's those 2 pieces right there. Alright, now we're going to remove what's called the side piston. So if this is in the way, then just unscrew this a couple turns. Doesn't look like it is, but you have to loosen it from the bottom and from this screw on the top. Underneath the screw there's going to be a little teeny O-ring that we're going to take out. And then once those 2 screws are out, we're going to poke a tool down here through here and it'll pop out the bottom. 3mm on the bottom here. Oh yeah, see, so that is in the way right there. Alright, actually, yeah. All I did was have to turn that a little bit. So, I'll just tighten it back up, it'll be fine. You just got to get it so that that point's not fitting over your screw right there. Looks like we got another O-ring here. So anywhere you see an O-ring, it can be replaced. Okay, because they give you O-rings when you buy the gun. Looks like that's a little threaded deal right there. This top screw right here is going to be a 2.5mm. And I have to go get a little dental tool to get that O-ring out of there. Alright, there it is. That's a little O-ring that's in that hole right there. And so now it looks like we're ready to pop a tool in here, give it a little whack, and that should come out the bottom. Alright, you do need something really thin to get in here, but once you do, boom, comes right out. So here's what those pieces look like, and I'll show you how they go back in. This pin at the top right here goes into the spring, and then you just insert that first into the hole, and then you'll notice this piece right here, one end is longer than the other. So you take the longer end and put that facing up into the hole. All right. Then it just pushes back in there. It's actually spring loaded, so yep, looks good. You can see, you can't see, but if I get the right angle, anyway, I can see that the metal has come up and pushed against the little ring that's in there. So I'm going to replace my O-ring, replace my grub screw, and that part will be back together. That grub screw actually has a fine point on the end of it, so it's sealing off under there. So it just stopped. I'm just going to go boop, like that. Alright, you have an issue where something's leaking, then you tighten it, but you just snug up. That's how the stuff's designed. Alright, and then the last thing I'm going to do is screw my little doody-doo back in. Now I'm working on a brand new gun right now, but you know, if your O-rings were worn out, you can replace every single one of these O-rings that you see. I think we've come across maybe 3 or 4 so far. Okay, so that just stopped. I'm not even cranking it on. I'm just barely going to go. Alright, yeah, that's called tight. Smurfix, that's all back together. Alright, you guys, we got small, medium, and large spring. 2 pins that are the same size. This is going to go in the back, in the center, and in the front. Lay your pieces out right like this. This, of course, is the trigger assembly that we're gonna slide that in the bottom right here. So you can put some grease on 2 sides of this. Alright, you guys, this little piece right here has got a spring-loaded mechanism in there, and you can actually go like that, you see. So right under there, you can grease up both sides of this, but you're going to take this little hook, put it right like that, and then stick your pin in that hole. Alright, now we just created this little doodad right here. Just put your parts right like that. Alright, now we're going to go to the other side right here. And this little guy, okay, he wants to be sticking, see that little thing right there? He wants to be sticking this way in relation to that. So just slide that baby over there. Look at that. Alright, you guys, so that's it right there. Okay, it's pretty simple. And then we're going to put that in the receiver. You can put a little bit of grease on that part right there. You guys, this part right here that I just talked about greasing, that is going to go right inside. There's a little notch in there that's cut out. And then that right there, that hole right there is where we're going to put our pin. And if everything's lined up, it should push in there easily. Got it on the first try that time. Find that hole wherever it is. There it is. Yeah, I went like that a little bit and it just pushed right in there. So we are good on that. Alright, got that all in there. So this little trigger piece is going to end up going right over that piece right there, just like this. And the easiest way to put this in is from the bottom. So I just put my pieces in from the bottom. I ended up using a little tool to line the holes up. But the screw will actually go through the holes as well. So you can use a screw, line those up, and they'll go right in. You want to insert your trigger pieces before you put your springs in. And then once your trigger pieces are in, you can put your springs in. They go in this order: large, small and medium. You just put those back in. Alright, once you got that in there, just give it a little bit of a test, see if it works. Looks like it does. Awesome. Then we can replace our cover. When you're screwing this piece back in, it actually bottoms out right there. So you just barely tighten it, and it'll be at the end of the threads there. Alright, now we're going to deal with the magazine control mechanism. We're going to unscrew these two screws. Be careful when you're tightening this one back up because you can break the magnet if you get it too tight. One thing to note, you guys, is when you put all this back together and you're doing your magazine back on here, all these surfaces has to be lined up completely flat. Okay, so make sure when you're taking these things apart, you put it back together, these are all completely flat. Alright, you guys, under here, that screw right there is your rate of fire adjustment. So you want to shoot faster or slower, you turn that. There's O-rings inside of each of these, so if you're getting a leak, you can replace that O-ring as well. This bottom screw has something to do with the magazine rotation, so don't adjust that. But definitely that top one's your rate of fire speed, so that's awesome. If this screw right here is too tight, then the magazine won't rotate, the bottom screw right there. So on the other side, we're going to go ahead and remove, there's a screw right there and a screw right there. This right here is spring loaded, so when I get this last screw out of there, it's going to come apart. There we go. And this part right here, I can just pull that out, a little pin thing right there. I got a spring, and then this little thing. Just going to fall right out like that. So there's that piece. Looks like we definitely got some grease in there. That cutout right there, you can see how, I'm just going to shove this back in there, hold on. Back in there like that. There's a little hole right there, this goes in that. Then you can clearly see how the shape of this fits in there, so you're going to push that in there. And that'll fit something like that, and then you screw it all back together. Like I said, make sure all those faces line up. I'm just going to go ahead and do that off camera because it does look a little difficult. And here's what the back of that looks like. Another part that you could probably grease. Alright guys, so I did go ahead and I over tightened my magnet, and it indeed broke the magnet. So fortunately I have more of those because I use those with my RC cars. So I will slap a new one in there, but yeah, like, don't even tighten it at all. Okay, just barely get it to where it stops. Alright, so we are ready to put our magazine thingamajig back on. So here's my magazine, and there's the two holes we're going to line up right there. Slide that baby right over. Then we got our little millimeter gap right there. We're just going to slide this in there. Close that gap right up, and then we're going to screw these two screw holes in there, right there. Alright, now in the event that your SK19 starts leaking, I'm going to show you how to find the leak in your SK19. Once you find the leak, you just replace the O-ring that goes there, and you'll be all set. So first you're going to take the shroud off, then you're going to take the barrel off, and then you're going to remove that entire bottom trigger bar. Alright, you guys, to perform this leak test, I took off the entire bottom trigger connecting bar like we did, and I removed the barrel. Now if you don't want your top end flopping around, just gently tighten down those two screws right there, and then this will all stay in one piece right here. First we're going to take this regulator section right here, and we're going to dunk it underwater. And if there's any leaks, there will be a little bubble coming up. So obviously, even though your gun may be leaking, you want to make sure there's air in the gun. Got a nice clean bucket of water right here. Give it a few shakes to get those little bubbles off, and then obviously my gun's not leaking. It's brand new. You guys can see the water line right there. So my regulator part's underwater, and I've seen leaks in air guns before. You'll just have a steady stream of bubbles coming out there. So it'll be super obvious. So no leaks right there. They said to air dry this, so I'm going to go ahead and blow it off with my air compressor. And then probably let it air dry overnight before I put that barrel back on there. Now if we want to check for leaks in this back area right here, all we want to do is take this plate off right here. And then with air in the gun right there, we'll just dunk this part underwater as well. Alright, you guys see here I got my plate off. And so that stuff's not going to fall out. I'm just going to dunk this right in the water. Alright, I'm holding this with one hand so we're a little closer to the surface, but zoom in here. There was definitely a lot of what I'm just going to call them ambient bubbles, you know, that were just hanging on, but obviously there's no leak here. If there was, there would be a steady stream of bubbles coming out of there. So we're good right there. Okay, this is actually totally dry, but you know, I spent a long time with the air compressor there, but I would go ahead and, you know, leave it overnight anyway. A nice dry spot before I put that bad boy back together. But it didn't hurt it at all. Actually, my parts are nice and clean in there now with a little bit of grease. Alright, you guys, in the event that your trigger is pulling but the gun's not firing, there's two things. Now, you guys remember that thing in the back that I said not to turn? So you can just pull up and you can see that's threaded right there. And you can turn this 1, 2, or 3 rotations to the right and then a few rotations to the left, and that may fix your trigger. If not, another thing you can do right there, that little screw right there will adjust your trigger travel distance. When you're adjusting your trigger bar, you can put it back on, pull the trigger, see if it's working right, and then if it is, you can go ahead and tighten all the screws down. So taking apart your SK19 and putting it back together for fun is something that I would not recommend. But if you have an issue like you want to clean your barrel or you get a jammed pellet, then you can deal with that. Now let's say you do take your SK19 apart and put it back together and something screws up. You'll just have to send your SK19 back to wherever you bought it from, you know, and they'll fix it right up for you. As you can see, it's a pretty simple design. Not that many parts, not much can go wrong. So definitely don't be afraid to buy an SK19 because now you know how they work. Alright guys, thanks for tuning in, and thank you to LCS for sending this gun out to me a while ago. And thanks for your patience. I have a lot of projects, so sometimes guns have to sit here for a little while before they get their time in the spotlight. So, alright, at this point we're ready to put the barrel back in. You got to end with some coarse threads and one with some fine threads. The fine threads are the LDC. The coarse threads right here are going to go right back into your receiver. You do have to have air in your gun when you put your barrel back in, and that is because this back lever right here will not stay up unless there's pressure in the gun. So you want to flick this lever up, and then you're just going to gently screw your barrel in until it stops. As you can see, I did that, and as soon as it touches the magazine, it's going to hang it up. Sure enough, I barely touched it, and my magazine was stuck. Now I backed it off just the slightest bit, and now my magazine's freed up. As long as your magazine is spinning, you're good to go. Neighborhood don't like that sound. I'll just tighten my screws back up there. Alright guys, boom, there you go. I'm not mechanically inclined, but I just took apart an entire SK19 and put it back together. you can too. Alright guys, thanks again for watching. We'll see you on the next one.